Ted Cruz flees Texas, his dog, and his freezing constituents. Hi everyone, Larry Sparano here with the latest on Target Viewpoint. Now, first of all, for those of you who might have assumed that during my previous Viewpoint I was praising Ted Cruz at the expense of reporter Andrea Mitchell, not so. And for those who also assume that I favor Republicans over Democrats and Fox News over CNN, MSNBC, and other mainstream liberal media outlets, not so. So listen to what I'm about to say about Ted Cruz. By fleeing Texas, along with his wife and kids for Cancun, while his constituents back in Texas were trying to stay warm in freezing temperatures without power or water, he showed that he is just as hypocritical and just as self-interested as many of the Democrats that he and other Republicans often criticize. It was only after he was getting hammered on social media and on CNN and other liberal outlets that he hurried back to Texas with the explanation that he was only trying to be a good dad by getting his kids out of the cold for a few days. But social media texts show that Cruz's wife had been talking with friends for a while about taking the trip, with apparently no mention of any concern for the voters they were leaving behind. The fact that Cruz, one of the most high-profile Republicans in Congress, would do such a thing, knowing that he is under a microscope by Democrats and liberal media, shows how his arrogance, selfishness, and elitist attitude allowed him to throw caution to the winds. Why not just send his kids and wife to Cancun and remain in Texas, where he could milk his image as a man of the people by at least pretending to be taking an active role in trying to get power restored, along with other measures to help those who elected him and all the residents of Texas? He did not do that because, like so many politicians, they live in a bubble, unconnected to the people who put them in office. Also left behind by Cruz and the family, according to reports, was his poor little dog, Snowflake, seen behind me, peering out of a window, lost and lonely in the unheated home that the Cruzes abandoned for their escape to Cancun. Now that's bad enough, but how is what he did any less offensive than California Governor Newsom dining with donors and lobbyists at a posh restaurant, maskless and not socially distanced, while keeping his constituents in lockdown? And it was certainly more offensive than Democratic Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot getting her hair done by a stylist despite her shutdown of salons and barbershops because of COVID-19. Her defense, quote, "I'm the public face of the city. I'm on national media, and I'm out in the public eye." How about that? Just another example of those who make the rules not abiding by the rules. They are special, after all, so what applies to you and me does not and should not apply to them. Get it? And how about House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a fierce and self-righteous Democrat, doing the same? When caught, her only defense was that she was set up by the beauty salon she went to after the footage of Pelosi getting her due, maskless, was leaked from the salon's security cameras. No apology or explanation or even an argument of why she should be exempt from the lockdown. Only that she was wrong by being set up. She was a victim. All these Democratic transgressions were roundly criticized by Republicans and shown repeatedly on Fox News. Which brings me to another point. Some of you out there also might have wrongly assumed that I'm a big fan of Fox News, and I think everything they report is true and that their approach to politicians and issues is even-handed and unbiased. Again, not so. And the most recent example of this is how Fox handled an interview with Ted Cruz after his jaunt to Mexico. It was with kid gloves. Sean Hannity, who promotes himself as being a warrior for justice and who asks hard questions of politicians, threw only softballs at Cruz as he explained his trip to Cancun. In fact, there were really no questions at all, but instead Hannity merely let him in to his excuse for making the trip. Hannity said, "You were trying to be a good dad." And of course, Cruz agreed. Case closed. And then they went on to the shortcomings of the Biden administration in dealing with the pandemic and other issues. Now, Sean, if you're going to be tough on Democrats, be equally tough on Republicans. But nothing like that ever happens on Fox News, unless it's a Republican who's fallen out of favor for not being Republican enough. Ted Cruz, a Republican stalwart, using his kids as an excuse for fleeing from his freezing constituents. Now, you could make something of an argument that Cruz used initially about his jaunt to Mexico. He said that with modern communications, he could just as easily remain on top of the situation from sunny Mexico as he could back home. In fact, Cruz did use that argument. And that was just more self-serving hogwash, to use a polite term. Cruz and other hypocritical politicians on both sides of the aisle should remember a quote from General George S. Patton. The quote, "Do everything you ask of those you command." That's today's On Target Viewpoint. Let me know what you think. And until the next time, stay informed, stay curious, and please stay safe.